This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I am joined by my very dapper-looking companion, Casey Trujillo, who is my ever-present co-host, and he's looking really nice. I think he's going to go do some fun stuff with his son tonight, and so he has to make sure that he looks formal. So, Casey, thanks for dressing up today.
Well, Todd, let's be honest. We're really on here because this is a unique guest. We've never had this type of guest before that could fire us after the show.
I know.
So
it's a little nerve-wracking.
It's a little nerve-wracking on our end, for sure.
Yes, it's true.
I'm glad you brought up Casey's dress, because that was the first thing that I caught, right?
I know. You and I are wearing T-shirts, and then Casey's wearing a white shirt.
We're all playing tech, and Casey's going like attorney accountant on us.
That's right. It's true. So everyone, so for our audience's benefit today, we have a really special guest. We've invited John Wade on, who, as Casey mentioned, is our boss. John Wade is the principal and owner of BrainStorm, and he is really one of my favorite people because I was in a meeting with him earlier today, and I was like, John is the best at like knowing how to explain his thoughts. That's maybe a high standard, John, but you're really good at providing context and like helping people visualize how you think. And so I'm excited for this conversation just because I always love listening and learning from you. So John, welcome to SaaS Therapy.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Todd, I think that's a very kind way of saying like I really talk a lot. And I don't really get to the point very quickly, but hopefully that's good for a podcast. Hopefully some context is maybe helpful.
Yes, definitely is.
Well, John, to get us started, you got to share the story that you shared before we started to record about your research. You went and did some research about SaaS Therapy. Tell everybody how AI assisted and helped you out with this.
Sure. Yeah, I asked AI, I'm going to be on this podcast, help me prepare, find out more about it, et cetera. What's the focus and what type of topics are pertinent, which I obviously have some idea for that. And that was the first thing AI responded with is like, this is your own company's podcast. it gave me a bit of attitude, which I don't remember adding that skill, or training my version of AI to do that. But maybe just interacting with me long enough, it picks up on those sort of things. So that was the first thing is I acknowledged, thank you. I am aware of that. But the part that I enjoyed, which kind of lowers the pressure, now after you guys set the bar so high of, providing context and these other sort of things, it said it's just a genuine conversation, right? So that and not only that, but like, hey, preparation isn't really the point. It's look, you've got information and experiences and knowledge to share, and just to have that come out in a natural and genuine type conversation, which that's a little more, that's a lot more familiar and a lot more comfortable than, imagining that you're sort of like on a stage with a camera, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Well, John, let's start out the conversation. We had just recently on the show a gentleman by the name of Justin Watt, and he's with, was it Switchboard? I think that was right, Todd.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so what he does is he goes into customers, so not the software vendors who customer success or AEs or CROs or CCOs of SaaS organizations who are our audience. He's actually working with their direct customers, and what he's doing is he's going in there, and every direct customer is just like, there's so many AI tools to use. Which AI tool should I use? Should we just build our own application that does what these other software vendors are doing? And then he tries to help them understand the landscape. And in some regards, he's like, it might be better for you to build your own AI application versus using software vendors. And one of the things that he found fascinating is why he's talking with the CEO of these organizations. One of the organizations made the comment to him, one of the CEOs made the comment to him is, we didn't use their SaaS application before, so it's great they came out with an AI module, but we didn't use their SaaS application right now that we bought. So why would their AI module work any differently than how it's performing today? So I'm setting that context to even go one layer deeper in the regard of, hey, people are interested in AI, they want to use it more, but how do I get my own employees just to be comfortable with AI? Let's just throw out whatever application we might use. I know you and Eric Farr and other leaders here at BrainStorm have said, hey, how do you just get the right mindset for AI? Let's just start with you as the individual before we even get to the technology. So John, as you've thought about this and you've had deep discussions, set us the framework. Do you start with just the people within your org, and then you look at the technology that you produce, and then it's how do I get my customers to use it? Like, what has been your mindset? How have you thought about it? As Todd said, explain your thoughts to us.
Yes, my first thought is about any software CEO, SaaS CEO could have shared that comment with, or any CEO of a business could have shared that comment with the guest, your last guest. Basically half of SaaS software licenses aren't used, and that's like, it seems like that should be talked about more. I think it's partly not because the people who know that are the SaaS companies themselves, or at least who watch that the most closely. And there's not a lot of incentive to say like, no one's using this, but they know it. And so that's a very common thing. And I think that frames, I get the answer to your question about how do I think, or how do we think? I'll probably speak in the singular because I'm the one who's speaking, but obviously all this thinking and thoughts and my opinions are formed by a lot of work over a lot of years, decades now, right? And with people, but who have shaped a lot of the thinking. But it is somehow, because it's technology and it's this bits and bytes thing, we tend to stay in that world like this is a technology thing, when it is so entirely a human thing. It is so entirely like the technology is to serve the person and the company and the society and all those things. That's why all of this technology gets developed in the first place, is to sort of benefit the human. And what technology really does is it enables the human. It equips us with capabilities that we otherwise would struggle to do, or maybe even be impossible, right, to do. But it equips us, even AI, like with all the sort of artificial capabilities and things it can do. Ultimately, it's created to like for our betterment, or hopefully for our betterment, right? And AI there's a lot of discussion that we could have along those lines, but and yet. It's not addressed like a human topic or a human challenge. And so I think a lot of thinking first comes from that perspective of like, hey, we're talking about people. Like you notice even in this conversation, we said, oh yeah, licenses haven't been adopted. Well, that's people. Like we could do it. We could flip that. We sort of reverse those metrics. And if you look at the industry, all the reporting research is done, it's always from that perspective of like licenses and this, but it's all people. And I don't think we really solve the people problem or the challenge until we recognize that this is a people challenge and a people opportunity, and people work differently than technology does. And I think you have to understand that, and you have to first recognize that, and maybe that's the first step, right? It's like, hey, wait, we're talking about people now, and so maybe we got to take this hat off and put a different hat on. And so I think we spend a lot of time doing that. I spend a lot of time doing that and trying to understand, how do people work and how do they think and how do even their brains and what's the neuroscience behind change, and frankly, at BrainStorm on our product teams. I don't know that I could say we spend equal amounts on understanding the science of those things, like the biology and the human science versus the technology, but it's a close race. It's a close race, right? So we spend a lot of time around understanding, well, what causes humans to change their behavior, and what causes them to sort of deflect things, and those are real things. And unfortunately, the science isn't as advanced in understanding the human brain and our behaviors as much as society would benefit from, and we would benefit from. But there is a lot that's understood, and I don't think our industry sort of takes that into consideration. And if it does, it doesn't do it naturally. Like you guys have a lot of guests on, and you're focused often on like the CSM function. Let's say that's one I know that you spend a lot of time on. I don't know how many CSMs are like pretty proficient in sort of, again, like neuroscience type patterns and neuroplasticity and all those sort of things, right? That are very important. And matter of fact, it's what is needed to get their customers to do what they want them to do. It's not a technology problem. The technology is easy. Anyway, so I think that's the first. With that framework, then in perspective, the conversation shifts and understanding, I think, happens more quickly. Is to in terms of how to help the people extract value from the technology.
John, one of the things that I don't, how long is it ago that you and Eric unveiled kind of our company mission? It's been, I mean, Casey and I have both been here over a decade, and it's been getting close to that at least, right?
Well, you used the word unveil, so it was.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as in it was. I feel like that's been in your thoughts forever. But one of the things I really loved when you put together a mission statement, which some mission statements just kind of feel, I don't know, like they're not inspiring. They're too corporate-y. For me, what I love about our mission statement is it starts with this idea of we want to help people to thrive and contribute more in a rapidly changing technology-driven world. And that idea of we want people to thrive and we want them to be able to contribute more. So this idea of balancing like what me, Todd, the individual person wants to feel like he's thriving versus what Todd needs to be able to do to help his organization succeed. Those are two really important. And there's like this tension that exists too. And I feel like a lot of the people I talk to don't even recognize that tension exists. And I'm curious how you try to deal with that. Like, helping the individual feel like they're thriving and succeeding with the technology that's been given to them, but then also making sure that they're achieving whatever the ends that the company needs to achieve.
Yeah, I do think that those circles overlap, right? They're not mutually exclusive entirely. But they do, the motives are a little different, right? In terms of the individual and how they thrive, and versus sort of a corporate entity. Again, there's a lot of overlap. I guess, maybe one of the ways I would think about that is, the technology and even what the company is trying to accomplish for the company, in order for the company to win, like those individuals, those employees they have to be able to, they're the ones that cause the company to win. Does that make sense? Meaning, there are ways that the employees can win, and maybe companies don't, and vice versa. There's some leaks. Like there are some leaks. It's not 100% matching and a clean fit, but what an employee can do is, if they can use the technology and be empowered by that, I think you feel that. I think you see that. Like for example, if you had a good day or a bad day at work, and it wasn't just because maybe you had a good or bad interaction with someone at work, or like did you actually do something today or did you not? And that's good for you. And I love those days. I would rather come to work and feel like I had a good day, like I accomplished something. So I get that sense of fulfillment than not. I like stand-up comedy, and Brian Regan, who is a comedian, who has this bit where he talks about he was working as a young person, as a young boy maybe, in like the sporting goods store, and this other young colleague says like, "Hey, I got to show you what I found." And he's like, it's amazing. He's like, what is it? And he goes, and this employee had found like a gap between like the drywall of the wall, and they were able to sort of squeeze in there and like hide in there. And Brian follows him in there, and Brian's like, all right, cool. Like now what? And he's like, no, nothing. Like this is it. Like we're not working. And Brian saw the like sort of the nonsense of it all. He's like, I don't know that this is better than like. And so like we know, like we know, and we want that feeling. And there's various things that can provide that. But in the context of sort of IT, if we use the tools properly, that absolutely augments that feel. Like it's more likely to have that feeling and have that result if we use the tools correctly. We've all experienced that. Like there are technologies or things that you do today that you would like never give up. well, like you just couldn't go back. You couldn't imagine like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
going backwards. And I don't know if you ever have those sort of lunchtime conversations about like, hey, like, would you give up, you know, would you give up your Netflix, or would you give up your microwave or your mobile phone, or like which one? Like, what are you going to do? And, but there are things that you're kind of, you know, will take a stand on the hill for.
Yeah.
So it's because of the value that it delivers. And I think software is good and AI is powerful. Like these things are amazing, but you have to harness them and you have to leverage them to your benefit. And so I think there's a way for then if a company explains their objectives and that both can win. Clearly they both can get their wires crossed a little bit, but I don't I don't think companies are trying to do that, and I don't
Yeah.
think employees are trying to do that. I think they're more on the same team, and it's just complicated. It's
Mm.
complicated, and particularly when the organization is larger and you have more people, that amplifies. It's not a linear sort of complexity. It's more exponential. I think the more people you have, absolutely, the more likelihood you're going to have sort of miscommunication, or again, the harder it is to get the organization as a whole to sort of, you know, use this technology or have the benefit and have the satisfaction because of the technology. So I don't know if that's one way to think about it.
See, Casey, I mean, it's true. John, I love it. Like, I love just listening to your thoughts. It's like they materialize in such a good way. It's so good. Thank you.
Yeah, they sometimes I might have to stutter and pause because I'm like, I don't know if this is what I'm thinking. But yeah, my mouth doesn't always speak. My mouth goes too slow. But anyway.
So John, as we think about this, we were on prem, and then we went to this thing called the cloud, and everybody's like, "Oh gosh, should we do it?" And then, you know, Microsoft kind of forces everybody to do it. There were some players out there, but then Microsoft really forces everyone, and all of a sudden, everybody starts to do it. COVID hits, and boom, accelerator. Then we hit AI, and I don't even think our brains can actually comprehend everything that AI is able to do, and all of the speed at which technology is taking. John, has the methods and the thought process around training kept up with the technology? I know you speak a lot about this, and I'm setting you up on this one because I really want people to understand this. Is technology has changed, but the way that we teach people to use technology, where are we at? Are we in the 20th century? Are we in the 1900s? Are we in the 1800s? Where are we at with learning and trying to keep up with technology?
Sure. Wow, Casey, I could spend the rest of our time probably thinking about this and sharing my thoughts, but I'll try to be succinct. I think where we are at and where we could be are not the same thing. But it's getting there. It's becoming like our market, our industry, in terms of how our industry helps companies and individuals in those companies, you know, adopt technology and benefit and extract the value and harness the value of these technologies is improving quite a bit. It's rooted in sort of an industrial age, you know, Prussian learning model, though. It's if you think to try to quickly explain without going into a lot of detail what that means. In an industrial age, education models follow economic need, first of all. So what does the economy need? And from its labor force, and education models adapt to those things. And in the industrial world, what happened was it needed conformity. It needed people to know how to work a factory line and everybody to do the same thing effectively, or the same thing on that part of the line. And so education was very much sort of this conformist model. And if you think about the education you experienced in your schooling, your formal schooling, it was, hey, let's put all of you in a classroom, and we're going to teach you the same thing, and we're going to test you on the same thing, and you all have to pass some certain level, and then like a bell's going to ring, and we're going to move you to another classroom, and we're going to do the same thing, and we want the same output more or less from everybody. I mean, that sounds a lot like a factory, right? Even the bells and everything. And so you know, the bell ring and you get a break and you get to go outside and play, and it's going to ring. You got to come back in. I mean, it's the parallels are astounding, and it's what education tries to do to meet those economic needs. And even you also probably went to kindergarten. Well, that's a German Prussian word. Like that's how much those education models are borrowed from 300 years ago. And when we apply that to technology, into like teaching people software, it has mostly been the same thing. The real technology, one of the more recent technological waves for our industry was LMS systems in kind of these 80s and 90s, in the 80s and 90s decades, and that's what LMS systems took that model, that Prussian model, and made it digital. Is what it did, right? So instead of reading an actual paper textbook, you could like read something on a screen, and eventually you could even attend a class, not in the same room in this physical space, but online in the same sort of digital space. And that's better than no education, but it's super inefficient. Meaning,
John, I got to add one. I got to give a hot take really fast on this, because this one just hits me, and I talk to people about this all the time. Is for some reason when we try to roll out business adoption, we all of a sudden get this veil of forgetfulness of how we learn today. So one of my biggest frustrations when I was going to college was I had to take classes that had nothing to do with my major, nothing that I was trying to accomplish, but I was forced to go do it because the college said I had to go do it. I had to take a certain amount of credits. How many times have people gone to take some training because we're rolling out this new software, and they're like, that didn't apply to me at all. Why? You just wasted my, and then they leave upset around that. Like, exactly.
That's why everybody says they love their LMS so much, and they all love going to training so much.
So
it's so common.
I mean, I just had to hit on that point.
All you need to do, man, did I touch a nerve? Like that's, but not only that, all your listeners are feeling the same thing. Like they gotta, they're ranting right now too, right? So all you have to do is just, tell someone, hey, you need to go to training, in the work setting, and watch them respond. Like it's not a good thing. And that's based on their experience that they've had before. And the reason why is because because of those inefficiencies. That does not mean those people that you would ask that question to don't actually want to learn something, and that they don't want something that's valuable to be taught to them. They do want that. And we all can tell a story about where, I learned this one thing, and now again, it changed my life. Like I'm gonna die on the hill to sort of keep this thing because I learned it. And so the model has been broken. And when you talk about technology, it's going to be it's more broken. And when you talk about AI, AI is going to exacerbate it. Let me explain what I mean by that is, with SaaS, there are various use cases for various individuals in a company of how they should use a SaaS application, but those use cases are finite. Maybe sales. Everyone likes to talk about role-based stuff, and I think there's some value there, but there's a lot more overlap than there is uniqueness. But let's say, like, someone in a marketing role is going to use Excel different than someone in a finance role, than different in an HR role, et cetera. Name the application, doesn't matter. You get the point. There's some uniqueness there. But all those applications, SaaS applications, have some finite capability, and all the use cases are just contained within that sort of boundary of what the SaaS application can do. So you can kind of educate people to a somewhat of a common destination, not common across the whole organization. That's what our industry still mostly does today, and that's very frustrating for people. And we haven't fixed that yet. And the problem's about to be exacerbated because AI doesn't do that. AI doesn't tell you, hey, this is where you're supposed to go with this technology. Instead of having a converging experience, it has a divergent experience, right? Where every single person can take AI into their very own unique destination if they wish, and AI will go with you. And so the education, the weaknesses of the education model today in our technology world, in our industry, is about to be exacerbated because there's going to be less conformity with AI than there has been with other SaaS applications. And you already today have a scenario where, again, humans are using less than half of the tools that have been purchased for them in their work environment. And even the ones they use, it's often not great. There's a few tools that probably everybody uses fairly proficiently, at least to their needs. But all the other stuff, they're just scratching the surface. And my guess is it's going to be that way with AI for a while too, just because it's natural language. The natural language interface will help quite a bit, but it's still very limiting. And so, meaning the human has to change. Deloitte did a research. A lot of people are doing a lot of research on this, right? Which is wonderful. But one of the quotes I love from Deloitte was, they said that AI in the enterprise will advance at the speed of work, not at the speed of technology. And what they mean by that is it can only advance into the business as fast as the humans can actually put it to work in a lot of ways. And that could be humans, you know, at every single desktop, or humans in a an operations team, or whatever it means. But if the people don't know what to do with it, or what it's capable of doing, and how to get it to do those things, it doesn't matter what the technology is capable of. And we know AI is, I mean, the last thing I read was, you know, the capabilities and the models are doubling about every 4 months, which is just unprecedented. But yet at the same time, we see like there's a McKinsey report in 2025 that said that like 80% of companies were reporting that like AI was having no meaningful financial impact on their business. That's not AI's fault. It's a people issue, right? It's a human issue, and it's human nature. Like, that's okay, but we better figure, like, companies that figure that out before others do will have a distinct advantage, especially with AI, because AI is extremely powerful. And I think we see this. You know, companies and individuals that are, you know, already AI enabled, if you will, have a marked advantage over those that haven't yet figured it out, or don't know what to do, or which tool to use, and all those sort of things.
Yeah, John, do you think the issue is more around the fact that you have all these end users who might have the technology in their hands, and they have all these different ideas of what it could do? Because when you get into this divergent issue, if you have 50 paths and you can't pick one, then you never make any progress, because you might dabble and you're constantly moving around. Or is it an issue where they like can't dream it? Meaning, like, do we have too many dreams of what AI can do, and that's preventing us from getting where it is? Or we don't have one dream. Like, we haven't been able to identify the dream that we really care about. So we're just kind of stuck in this weird spot. Like, one of the things that I really like that you and the leadership of BrainStorm did this year was this idea of having every department have AI pillars, that a person had to go and identify some way that they could incorporate AI in a meaningful way into their work each quarter. Like, what was your motivation for doing that? And do you, does that maybe give an idea of how you might answer that question as to like what's preventing us from making the progress that we want to see as people with AI?
Sure. Well, if you want people at work to change, there are proven approaches that work, and ones that have, I think, demonstrated over and over again that they don't work. The reason, so I'll speak to this specific example you mentioned, Todd. That goal, that charge of every single BrainStorm employee has to implement an AI operating pillar, and pillar we define as, like you said, like something meaningful to the way you do your work, and meaningful / transformational, right? Is the task. That is in our OKR system, right? Like, that is something that is being measured. Employees know we're watching, like their boss and their manager is watching, and there to support. There's a lot of support resources, obviously, as well. So and we're doing it that way because we know that that's one of the ways you can drive people at work to change, is you prioritize it. Too often, a training or adoption is sort of this sidecar effort in the business. And it's a special project team, or it's allocated to a department that really doesn't carry much weight in an organization. I mean, we live in the L&D space. It's okay. I think we can kind of, we should call it what it is. And like, L&D organizations in a company they don't really carry a lot of weight. Like, they don't have a stick to swing. You know what I mean? And they're not close to what I would call, this is a Bain and Company vernacular, but what I would call sort of the spine of the business. And if you want people to change, you have to run that change through the spine of the business. Think of the things that are to the spine. Spine meaning the very center core of like what the company is there to do and how they do it. And that is generally through like the management or organizational structure of the business, who's also managing the other things that the employees are supposed to do in the business. So if your direct manager is managing you to adopt AI versus you're getting an email from L&D, like, I don't even have to continue that conversation with you. You understand, like, oh, this is different, and adoption will happen. Well, most adoption of technology doesn't get that kind of sponsorship, right? Like companies don't they obviously must not care about it enough to sort of drive that type of change. And to be fair, you can't push everything through the spine. Like, you have to prioritize because there's so many initiatives and so many things are important. AI will companies will prioritize the technology of AI. I don't know which, not all of them will, but by and large, many more companies will prioritize the the adoption and use and sort of enablement of AI in their business. Depending upon how they do that will determine sort of what it does for their business. If they follow the best practices, I think they will benefit from AI more broadly across their employee base. If they don't, then it will be more concentrated. And initially, I think companies might mistake that for like maybe cost savings, like we can get AI to do things employees, we don't no longer need these employees to do. I don't believe that a fully AI enabled, that there's not room for a fully AI enabled employee. I think there is. It's that type of employee is very, very powerful because it's worth dozens of employees potentially, right? And companies will miss the opportunity. They'll miss the opportunity to enable their people to be much more than they could because they deployed it and the motion that they took to get people to adopt it where it wasn't optimal. And so only only few did. And so anyway, we know that like putting it in an OKR or close to the spine is one of the things that will drive change. So thus we have it there. And we're going to kind of follow our own sort of best practices, if you will. And it's been interesting to see. How would you two rate, like, how's it going? We're barely a quarter in, right? Have you seen change in the business?
I would say absolutely. Like, it's interesting, right? Because from my perspective, as an employee and as someone with employees who are really trying to figure this out, the only reason many of the people I know who are willing to figure it out is because of that spine method. So one, you've managed to activate a lot more people in that regard. So I think there's a really big, the executive sponsorship stick helps a lot, right? And so I think that's a really good point. I would say one of the things that I'm curious about is, like, in your mind, how do you feel about the fact that, like, a lot of the initiatives, it has maybe stretched the company in some ways. Some ways I think are really healthy. Some ways might feel like, man, does that now create lots more distraction because we could go in so many different directions? And then how do we then wrangle that back in and then pick the paths we want to go?
Yeah. We have this debate in our executive team meetings around how much time do we want employees spending actually like trying to figure out AI versus do their job, the thing that sort of helps the business and all of us pay our bills type of a thing. And the answer isn't the same for every role, for every employee. So one of the distinctions that is very intentional that might get sort of lost because we haven't talked about this, but in that OKR, in that sort of metric, initiative that we have in the business, it says implement an operational AI pillar. That doesn't mean everybody in the company needs to be a builder of the AI capability. It just means they need to grab one of them and implement it. Implementing is something every role, we would say, is worth every role spending whatever time is necessary just to figure out how to implement something that somebody else already implemented, because that doesn't take that much time. I mean, frankly, it takes very little time. And we started out with one of these a quarter. The last conversation we had was, we think that's not enough. We're going to hold it We're going to hold it there for at least the first half of the year, just to like, not sort of shock the business, too much. But my guess is the second half of the year, the metric increases because, and also AI change. Like, we set that goal at the end of last year. Things like cowork weren't available, and now you have these cowork capabilities and sharing of skills and all, like the AI. Again, it's doubling every 4 months, right? And so what was a probably a good target then is no longer a good target because the AI capability just changed so much and enabled users to do so much more with, frankly, not much more effort or no extra effort. So, but I guess that's kind of how we think about it a little bit is not everybody needs to be a builder, but we have to have builders, and we do. Every company will have them, and or most companies will at least, and we have them, and then everyone else can benefit from that. And there are certain roles that should spend enough time to be a builder, right? Because the value of knowing how to use AI more fully absolutely outweighs whatever time it takes them to learn how to use AI and to use AI in that way. It's for some roles, it's extremely powerful, and so and increasingly so. So I don't know if that's kind of how the discussions we have and the approach we've taken thus far, anyway.
John, I always tell the story that my buddy signed me up for a race. I should have known by the name of the race. It wasn't a race I should have done. It was called the Bear Gutsman. And I just looked at the mileage. I just saw how long it was. It was like 13 miles. I'm like, oh, that's not horrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible. I didn't know it was running up a mountain for 13 miles. And that was horrendous and horrible. So I'm a big fan of warnings. So John, as you're thinking about AI and everything that we've discussed today and, individuals changing and, hey, not everybody has to be a builder, but everybody needs to be an implementer, having the right mindset. Is there one final warning that you might give to our audience about, hey, just be aware of this?
Boy, I feel like there's a lot of sort of alarms, in the media and things, and often by people that are way more, much more knowledgeable about AI than I am. I think I guess we tend to think of whenever new technologies come as this sort of being like somehow unprecedented in terms of like the change that it will bring, and I'm going to struggle to sort of articulate this, but I lived, I was in my professional career during the .com era as well, and what there are patterns when technology gets introduced, and first the market doesn't really quite understand what its capabilities are, and then it overestimates what its capabilities are. Todd, that kind of gets back to your like, are we dreaming too big? And then it sort of settles into this sort of reality of what because I think it gets sort of inflated because you start to envision what could be possible, but that usually is ahead of what the reality is. And AI is, I think, testing that sort of arc, if you will, but I can also see common things. I could also see the arc playing out, and it actually, sort of following this historical pattern. And so, I guess the warning would be to also take this one sort of a day at a time, and to let that sort of the shock of a new technology being introduced to the market sort of happen in its natural course, and take advantage of it, but do so. I don't know. Do so in a sort of a steady, methodical, and thoughtful way. Not with. I don't know that being an alarmist has usually been helpful, and I do feel like there's a sentiment that way. There's a fear. So I think it should be embraced, and people should learn how to use it and benefit from it. Absolutely, but it's meant. It should do that. It should benefit you, not threaten you or harm you. And that doesn't mean that there won't be shifts in the market. Like, some industries will be created, others will go away. That does happen, and that happens even. That's not just AI related. That's just when you have a technical shock to the economy. Those sort of things happen. But ride that wave day by day, and unless this technology is different than every single other technology, it will lift. It'll like the tide will rise, and all boats will sort of rise with it. And so just kind of take your part in that, and lean in and kind of learn it. But I don't know that it requires, sort of this alarmist view or fear. I mean, it's good to be motivated. You don't have to be motivated by fear. I think you can be motivated by opportunity, and maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's the warning is don't be Todd, don't find yourself paralyzed because you don't know where to go because there's so many things, and maybe it's that analogy. And when you said that before, we didn't really kind of get to this, but it thought of like this feels like kind of eating an elephant, and it probably really is. Just take a bite. Just start there. Take a bite. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, and it is an elephant, and I don't think we can deny that, or it's healthy to do that, and how could we? But just take one bite at a time and get in the game, and I think that works out. I think that works out for companies. I think it works out for individuals sitting in their seat in their job. I think it works out for the economy as a whole, and so hopefully society as a whole. There's some pretty alarmist things that those that are really close to AI will say, and I don't know that. It's interesting that they know more than I do, but they also kind of have a motive. They have a motive. Think of all the dollars. Todd, we were talking about this. Think of all the dollars that were spent in some of these, that have been invested in some of these companies. They can't, those CEOs can't do anything but promise the world, and
right.
Because of how much money's been invested, and that's not to diminish the capability of what AI could do, but they have to sell up. Right, like they have to sort of communicate a story that way, and that's part of that. I think that's part of that bubble that happens in this phase of some of those waves a lot of times. And again, past performance doesn't always guarantee future performance, but history is a pretty good predictor sometimes too. And so we'll see. But I would just say, take a bite of the elephant. Don't be afraid of the whole elephant, and just get in it. I don't know if that's what you're going for, Casey, but that's where my head went.
Oh, I think that's great, John. We're getting near the end of our time, and we always ask our guests to, because ideally this is supposed to feel like a therapy session, right? And for me and Casey, actually, I love asking you questions because it's like, as my boss, I hope you're going to provide me a little bit of therapy, which is good. But what's interesting is we always ask our guest at the end, the last question we ask them is like, hey, if you're acting as the therapist here, like, what would your homework assignment be for us? Like, what should we do that's different? So I'm gonna be a little unfair to you because Casey kind of teed you up. I feel like if we hadn't asked you that last question, your homework probably would have been to take a bite of the elephant. If I were to rephrase that, I would say like, hey, in every wave, right, there's a peak and a trough. Don't stay in the trough. Like you can, like, of course there's going to be troughs, but don't live in the trough. Don't just stay at the bottom of the wave. Like you can ride the wave back up to the top, and it's going to be worth it if you do. So, but because you already gave us that, I'm going to say you can't make that your homework assignment, even though I think that's a really good one. So if you could give us one other thing, right, what would that be?
With respect to AI, with respect to sort of technology adoption,
anything. Just like this has been a therapy session. Like if you could just like speak through and grab a listener and shake them, like this one thing, if you could just figure out one thing, it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be. We've had people who are like, go for a walk, go outside, It could be anything. John, what would your one therapy homework assignment be?
Well, okay. The word therapy connotes, like a little bit of an existing problem or uneasiness, you know what I mean? And so, I'm going to come at it a little bit again from that perspective. And what I would say is spend some time like thinking of a way to, so for whatever, I'll pose this with AI. So if you feel like with AI coming at you, like, man, is this a foe? You know what I mean? Or like, is this a threat, or what is this exactly? And is it going to knock me down? Find a way with this shock, with this change, to fall up instead of fall down. And sometimes only things that we think can knock us down force us to think of ways to find another path to fall up. And so this is not this is me borrowing a thought, and I can't remember if it's from the book Embrace the Suck or Happiness Advantage. I can't remember which one of those two. It's from one of those two books. And I use those two books in raising my children that are now all out of the house. But as they like got cut from whatever team, or, these things that are like so meaningful when you're 14 years old or whatever that is, right? That's kind of the advice that's sort of an example that I would share with them, is like, hey, because this thing is now the case in your life, and it wasn't what maybe you planned or what you thought, or it doesn't feel like a good thing, find a way where it absolutely is. Like there's a path that will allow you, once you find it, to do something that you would have there's no way you would have done otherwise if you didn't hit that wall, and find what that route is to fall up. Don't let it be a case where it causes you to fall down, fall up. And that's a little sort of fatalistic, maybe sort of a way to sort of think about AI, is it's going to like knock us. But I do think there's a little bit of uneasiness with everybody, right? And there's a lot of unknown, and things that are unknown to us are uncomfortable. Like we don't generally think of them as being positive. Our minds much more quickly will identify with what could be negative. But fight against that. Don't let your mind do that. Find a way to fall up. And I think there will be. I've been shocked. Listen, I haven't run into a scenario with any of my 4 children that have all run into cases where they could have fallen down, where there wasn't a path to fall up in their life. And I think their scenarios probably felt maybe even more life-changing than the way AI really feels to all of us right now. So that's what I would do. I'll quit talking now.
John, that was awesome. It's so funny too. I can tell you're getting pulled away into another meeting with some of the notifications there. So we got to let you get out of here, but no, it's all good. John, normally at the end of these shows, I always tell people go follow them on LinkedIn, figure out how to they love getting direct messages. I don't know. Do you want people to reach out to you? Do we tell people to go find you? What do we do? What do we tell people about you? Yeah. Sure.
I am on LinkedIn. I'm not one of the sort of like real active participants of LinkedIn, but I find a lot of value there. So yeah, if anybody would find value, with that type of a connection or relationship, absolutely, that would be fine. So they probably find more value connecting to you on LinkedIn, both of you, but if they want to include me in that circle, that's great.
John, that's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And everybody, just remember, come on back every week. We release these episodes every Wednesday. And thanks for being with us on the journey. And John, thanks for joining us.
Genuine conversation, I understand. That's
I hope it felt that way. Yeah. I hope it felt that way.
Yeah.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by BrainStorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.